There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Wildfire, as everyone knows, has emerged as one of the big major issues affecting Oregon and, for that matter, all western states. A real actionable response that's including how do we fight fire, actively managing our forests so that we don't have the fuels out there, and how are we going to protect communities from smoke exposures. The council is really set up to have a comprehensive strategy that's based on action and based on protecting our communities.
The primary focus we as a board have come through with is that in researching the policies for fire management, yes, prescribed fire has its place on the landscape, but not during fire season. We, as a county, passed a proclamation that says once the state fire marshal declares fire season, it'll be nothing but full suppression, and recently took a resolution to the National Association of Counties, essentially says that they support coordination between agencies and local governments for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens regarding fire. Prescribed fire, fire season, anything that affects our citizens.
This is Lily Morgan from Josephine County, and we are at the Rogue Leadership Forum today, looking at the best possible partnerships that we can come up with to fight the fire issues and the smoke issues that we're facing in Southwest Oregon. So looking forward to coming up with solutions and the partnerships to get the job done so we don't face what we have the last few years with catastrophic fires and smoke that invades our communities for months to come. So this is a good opportunity, and we hope to be successful in the outcome.
Seeing so many people come together has really been exciting for me because there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of resources, and as we attempt to do a shared stewardship approach to keeping people safe, it's really important that we get together. So my name is Merv George Jr., and I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. The first thing is making sure to get fires out if they're threatening life and property. The second thing that I'm going to focus in on is when it's safe to do so, to put some fire on the landscape when it's cooler and not during fire season to reduce these same fuels that are giving us so much fits during the fire season.
Bob Horton, I'm the fire chief of Jackson County Fire District 3 in Southern Oregon. The challenges that are facing us in terms of the mega fires and the wildfires that we've been experiencing out in this valley, particularly in the last couple of years, but across the state and across the region, incredibly concerning to us in the fire community, those in our communities in general, our constituents and our patrons are extremely concerned, as they ought to be. Really the takeaway from the work that's being done now is this is an extraordinary collaboration of dozens on dozens of interested stakeholder groups who are coming together with a common purpose. It's really an inspiring showing of humanity to not only be able to provide for a greater quality of life for our people, but to be strong stewards of our land, so that our future for us and generations to come is incredibly bright.
Very pressing issue. It's bearing down on us. Fire season is approaching, and I am really interested in preventing my home and other homes in my community from being impacted by wildfire, specifically from being burnt down. That's my main reason for being involved.
Quite a collaboration of folks. We're here looking for practical solutions to help us unravel some of the issues surrounding wildfires.
All right, if everybody's ready, then I'll call this meeting to order, the Curry County Budget Commission meeting, and if you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What unison, Mr. Chair?
What's that?
What unison on that?
We sounded like the choir.
Yeah, we did, huh?
I wouldn't go that far.
So, adoption of the amendment of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Huddle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have one item. A little bit ago, this is actually a Board of Commissioner business item, but we have a Board of Commissioner meeting at 1 o'clock today, but we have a public hearing that notice was published that it would be at 10 o'clock for the Board of Commissioners. So just in case anybody shows up for a public hearing on a matter of a fee adoption for the Board of Commissioners at 10 o'clock, we can take a quick recess and take their stuff. So just a heads up, people usually show up to fee hearings like they show up to budget committee meetings. So I think we're going to be okay.
Okay. If I missed that, bring it to my attention, please.
Sure.
I got my back to the crowd here.
The crowd.
All right, which brings us to our next agenda item, the public comments. I don't see anybody, haven't got any requests, so we'll move forward from there. I got an email from Brad last night indicating that he would be prepared to start his presentation early so we can fill this first 15 minutes with part of his presentation and then move forward from there. So, Brad, it's all you.
Okay, so first budget that we'll look at on page 2 is the non-departmental. This is, out of all the ones that I'm presenting, is probably the most changes are being made to this one. So there was a adopted budget of just over $9 million. There have been several changes to this. First change would be about a third of the way down on the revenue for the federal payment in lieu of taxes. There's $1.6 million budgeted. We have heard that will be down at least $1 million. We don't normally get that payment till June, so we won't know exactly what it is until June. But there is that possibility we won't get anything in that area.
What was that number again, Brad?
It's the 1.6 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Federal payment in lieu of taxes. So, that's an issue that's could end up hurting a bit.
Laughed.
However, on the upside, if you look at the line above it, it's a CARES grant. There was nothing budgeted in that area, and there's $700,000 that have come in due to CARES money. This is money that is flowing out to public health, which could possibly help reimburse the $140,000 that was budgeted to move out of the general fund to public health. Moving down, you'll also see.
Mr. Boyce, you had a comment?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. As we go, do you mind if we interrupt, or you want us just to wait till the
No,
end?
if it's a question about what we're immediately talking about, go ahead and
Okay,
interrupt.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking the $140,000, that is what we build the CARES program through public health.
No, 140,000. If you look over on the page number 3,
okay,
you'll see a list of numbers, all depicting funds flowing out of the general fund to backfill each of the departments. Down at the bottom, the last 4 lines, you have public
that
health.
one you highlighted yesterday?
Sorry, this is what I went to each individual department, pulled these numbers out, and they're all here on one page.
They're all right here.
I'm laughing at myself for going over.
Well, we appreciated what you did greatly.
That's good, though. You don't find many attorneys that can laugh at themselves, so that's good.
So the last line?
So the last 4 lines total about 140,000. These are funds that were expected to backfill public health departments. Those may not have to come out with the addition of this unexpected 700,000 that the county has received from the CARES Act.
So if I may?
Yes.
So it'd be about 550,000 CARES Act relief money. As you said, 701 minus 140?
Well, the 701 is all slated to go to, it's just a pass-through account. If you look down on the expenditures, line 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th line down, you'll see that money is listed as an expense. It's all flowing out to public health. My point is that where at this time last year when we were building the budgets, there was $140,000 that we expected to backfill public health departments.
From the general fund?
From the general
Yes,
fund. That
thank
may
you.
not have to be used for that.
Okay. My 5th line down is dog licenses. I'm thinking we might have to raise those. Thank you,
Oh,
Director.
you were on revenue. I think he was looking.
Yeah,
at
no, I'm
expenses.
kidding.
Okay.
Okay, so moving down on the revenues, the next one that I just wanted to bring up was 4th one from the bottom on the revenue section. COVID reimbursement, $525,000. This is additional CARES Act funding that we have received in that obviously was not budgeted for, helping to make up some of the shortfall in that PILT fund. Going back up to the top, 3rd one down, taxes from the electric co-op at this point is at 105%, being 50% of the way through the year. So that's a gain of 21,000 so far this year from what was budgeted. Everything else in the revenue is pretty much in line and expected to come in its due course. Moving down to the expenditures, you'll notice that there's a line about halfway through that section that shows an 11,000% increase. It's the general liability insurance. This is simply that the $210,000 expense there simply needs to be split out between the different departments and recognized on the departmental side of things. So that isn't an issue. It will work its way out.
Commissioner Herzog, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did, Brad. I hate to go back, but I'm kind of stuck on that 1.6 million.
Yeah.
So when you say, do we know if we will, is there a chance or is there no chance?
Well, we will probably receive something. We just don't know exactly what it's going to be. It has been reported to me that it will be $1 million down. I talked to the treasurer this morning, and she basically said, we don't really know what it's going to be until it comes in.
That's right.
And that comes in usually around?
Springtime, June.
Okay.
June, actually.
Okay.
Go ahead. Commissioner Pash, go ahead.
Well, I'm just, to my knowledge, it was going to be about $590,000, I think, this year is what, I think the last set of emails we got were, this is what Wyden and Merkley stood on the Capitol steps a year ago and promised that they would have in perpetuity for us, but it's never come to pass, so.
That was, yeah, we're going to be about $1 million down. If we get anything over 600,000, we would be feeling fortunate. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking down the expenditures then. There are 2 items close to the bottom, and they say other M&S working capital and non-spend. These are, as far as I understand, essentially reserve accounts. They, I don't think we have, they're there for contingency issues, and as of the beginning of as of the end of the calendar year, we've had no expenses in them, and my point being that we may not end up using that 500,000+ there.
Okay.
All right, before I move on, any other questions about that fund?
I have a question. 3 lines up from the bottom on revenues, the unassigned fund balance of $3 million. Is that just a
those are all,
yeah,
all 3. The last 3 lines on that revenue section are all carry forwards.
Okay.
And so they are in line.
Okay.
There's nothing to worry about there. Okay, then moving on to page 63, the PEG access. Really nothing to report here. Everything's functioning as normal. What's not reflected here is that there is $38,000 that has come in from the fees, so that's a little bit ahead of budget. Next fund, page 100, the Commissioner's Fund. Really, this is all in line with budget.
You want to give us a little extra time there to get to those, please?
Are you having to thumb through a lot of pages?
It's your fault. No. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, Commissioner's Fund, it's all in line. There's nothing that stands out to me there that would be a red flag. Flip the page to 102.
One question, if I could, Chair.
Go ahead.
On the 00584, which is about 4 from the bottom, the travel and expense, I didn't know for transportation. Why are we over on that?
You're looking on Commissioners?
Yeah. Yeah, page 100, about 4 from the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Transportation, I didn't know we'd done any transportation this year because of the COVID.
Right, and that...
I haven't billed anything.
And I'll have to look into that. Looks like it's $136 over budget.
Yeah. We're 191%.
Yeah. So I can look into that and let everybody know.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're fine. Okay.
Well, the 3 lines up, the 191, I think that's office supplies. And then the travel is
4 lines
$19 over.
Yeah.
Right, but we're at 102%. We're only at biannual on this. So.
Yeah, there was 369 period actual spent in the last, but whatever it was.
I'll look to see what's going into that.
Yeah.
Sure, just so you know, you're right at your 15 right now, so.
I think I got till, let's see, when's the next?
Oh, you got till 30, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
30. We started a little earlier. Okay, any other questions on Commissioner's Fund?
Sure.
Wonderful. Then going on to Bach Office, again, this is really in line.
What page?
I'm sorry, page 102 and 103.
Thanks.
So this is in line with what was budgeted. Expenses are extremely low right now. Really no issues there. Next one, page 110. This is IT. And no surprises here either. That's all in line. I will comment on, in the expenditure section, 586-00 computer software. That is at 109% simply because excuse me. This is the software upgrade, or the licensing upgrade, which came in a little higher than what was expected during budget season last year. But other than that, everything else is in line and looks good.
Could I ask you, that also includes a subscription for Casella as well, too, right? For the software?
No, I don't believe so. I think that's over in accounting.
Sorry.
Okay, go.
Excuse me. Brad, is that going to stay there, or is it going to? Okay.
Yeah, that stays there. It doesn't get distributed between the departments.
Right, but I mean, it's not going to grow.
Oh no,
Okay.
no. That was a fixed cost.
Fixed, okay.
It actually, I think
It was expected to go down, wasn't it?
next year, I think it's only
Yeah, it goes down
47,000
a
or
little
something
bit.
like that.
Okay.
It goes down.
Okay, go back to page 104 to the accounting fund. Really nothing to report here either. It's all in line. Everything's about 50%, which is right where we expect it to be.
Brad, on the revenue sources,
Mhm.
and I know we've got 3 experienced budget committee members here, but we have 1 person. Can you talk about what an IGS is and just kind of explain for the?
Sure.
Okay.
So what you're going to be seeing on a lot of the funds that I'm talking about are IGSs in the revenue. It's because accounting has no revenue stream. Bach Office has no revenue stream. So each of the departments pay a little bit into accounting and Bach Office and commissioners' funds to essentially pay for the services of accounting or of commissioners. That's why you see all these IGSs there. It's money flowing from a specific department's fund into the fund that you're looking at, in this case accounting, to help pay for the expenses that they use there. Those typically are made, well, I won't, that's all.
IGS stands for?
Intergovernmental Service.
Yep.
And SAL?
Salary.
Salary. BEN is benefits?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And JH is John Herzog.
Or John Huddle.
Yeah. But legal also is paid through those. We're funded through, basically the other departments are paying accounting, Bach, legal for our services that support them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what the IGS means.
So like I said, that's all in line. Expenses are down, which is pretty typical, partially because of COVID. There's money there in all the departments for travel, for what do you call them? The
training or
yeah, any kind of trainings, seminars, which haven't been used.
Brad, I got a question on that page though, on 107, professional services legal.
107?
Page 107, yeah, this is just in accounting expenses. You guys have a line item for professional services legal, and I'm just wondering, I'm pretty sure that's not a IGS to me, and then you've got professional services consulting, where nothing was spent out. You know, where are those? You know, are those for, what are those?
You're looking in the accounting fund?
Yeah, yeah. It's,
on the expenses?
Yeah.
And they're advertising legal?
Admin
Maybe I'm not
service.
seeing it.
No, going up the second line down, professional services legal.
Page 107.
It's it's budgeted for 36,000. The year-to-date actual 75, and then professional services consulting is budgeted for 62,000 and no payments. And I'm just wondering, first, I mean, I don't believe you guys have contracted with an outside lawyer to do work for the accounting department. Anyway, just a question, and what that expense is for if it's not for lawyers.
Okay, so page 107 is payroll and personnel.
Oh, I saw it as being.
I have.
Oh, thank you. Good. Okay, my
Yeah,
book
but
is
it's
out of
payroll and
place. I
personnel,
skipped from
so
one.
gotcha.
My book skipped from 104 to 107, so I apologize.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
But
we're scratching our heads going.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to payroll and personnel.
What page?
Happy to help.
So I have it as page 108. Is that the same page you guys have?
It has to be.
Yes,
Should
108.
be. Okay. Page 108 and 109.
Right.
Again, not much to report here. Everything is, well, I take that back. The revenues are in line. If you look at the salary expenses, you'll notice that they're 95% for the year, halfway through the year. This is simply a misclassification of employees where it was being put into payroll instead of accounting, I believe. So that will be fixed, and once it is fixed, it brings it down to under 50% in the salaries. Expenses, other expenses, again, typical of all other departments. They're down mainly because of COVID.
Brad?
Yes.
And the committee, I apologize. 107 is the expenses of the legal department, and that difference there is something I walked us through yesterday, where we took Brenda's salary and put it in, and we paid for things, and we just need to do a budget change. So I'm probably going to stop talking. But, sorry about being confused.
Okay.
You're going to
All right, so we're moving on to PERS reserve, which is page 130. Really, PERS reserve on page 130, unemployment reserve, page 129, probably doing that backwards. There's really nothing to report here. Those funds are functioning as they should. They are essentially reserve funds in case of shortfalls in PERS or a large contingency fund for large-scale layoffs. So, like I said, nothing to really report there. Moving on to page 88. This is emergency services, the water safety program. There are quite a few changes on this one. The expected revenues show at about $109,000. At this point, they are $70,000. Differences are simply because at budgeting time last year, it wasn't known what their revenues would be, what grants would come in. In speaking to Luke about all of this, he is aware of the changes. He is really basing his expenditures off of the grants that have come in. So there has been $70,000 in grants that have come in. Salary expenditures are about $20,000, which is less than what was budgeted. And his expenses so far are about $8,000. So that fund is okay as well. It is under the revenue and being self-funded. Okay, page 77, county surveyor. Really nothing to report here either. It's all in line. Expenses are less than budgeted at this point.
Wow.
We're almost done with my group. Page 79, Cornerstone Preservation Project. Again, nothing to report. This fund is funded by property deed filing fees and is used as a reserve for the county surveyor in case there is a big cornerstone project that they need to pull funds from. But right now, it's just the money is just sitting there. And second to last, page 80, the GIS services. This one looks like it should be okay as well. The county did need to change GIS services. We are working with Lane Council of Governments at this point, and there has been a few expenses incurred for bringing matching the new system to what was being used for ease of use and some fees like that. But overall, the fees are all the same, and this budget should be in line as well. Last one I have to report on is the Suicide Prevention and Awareness Fund. This is page 124. Again, not a lot to report here. There's about $7,000 budgeted, about $5,000 used, giving the fund about $2,000 left to spend for the year. But that will stay within budget if that gets used at all. So anyway, that concludes my portion.
All right. Any questions? All right, we'll take, Jim got a question real quick for everyone, so we'll take him out of order and knock this out real fast.
Thank you, Jim Cullen, Curry County Assessor. This came up because the only expenses in the assessment and tax budgets that are at exactly 50% are those IGS services. Mm-hmm. And I really wasn't expecting you to go first this morning, but I only caught part of your comments. I heard you when you talking about the IGS services saying your expenses for all those were down. And yet you're still drawing 50% of what general fund departments have budgeted for it. So I'm just wondering, is that going to be corrected at any point, or do you just take the whole amount that you budget regardless of whether or not you spend it?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question exactly. You mentioned that I had said that the IGSs were.
You mentioned that your expenses were down in the IGS services.
What page?
The IGS services?
Well, finance, council, BOC, commissioners.
Expenses were down, yes. In general, expenses were down, across the.
And yeah, what
everything.
I'm saying, all those line items in the assessment and taxation budgets are still taking 50% of what was budgeted for those. And I think that's the case for all the general services.
Okay, I think I get what you're saying.
In fact, on many on that particular budget, some of the other funds are at exactly 50%, and some of them aren't. So, you know, I'm wondering why there's a difference there.
So you're saying, so assessment and taxation, you're paying into accounting, and you've paid 50% so far. But if accounting doesn't use all of its budgeted resources, does your department and everyone else's still pay
at the end of the year, accounting
that full
only
amount?
pays 95%. Will you be adjusting those budgets that you draw from to the 95%?
That's a good question. I don't know that I really have an answer for it. It does all come out of the general fund.
The other thing that I noticed in just going through these budgets is I don't know why finance, council, BOC, commissioners, why don't you have an IGS fee for the other funds in those budgets? I mean, for instance, county council, commissioners probably use county council as much as any county department. And yet there's no IGS expense in the commissioner's office for county council, or in the finance department, or whatever all those other IGS departments are.
Mr. Boyd.
It seems like if that's the case, then assessment and taxation is subsidizing the commissioners, they're subsidizing council, they're subsidizing finance, because, I mean, those departments aren't paying the other IGS fees to those other IGS departments.
Mr. Boyce, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 3 days ago, coincidentally, I was talking with Coos County Commissioner Maines, and that's one way, if I understand your question, Assessor Colin, that's one way that they divide, in particular for public health, was his point, that they can properly account for the monies that are going back and forth between the departments. I don't know if that, am I understanding you correctly then on that? You just said subsidizing different departments. So if that's the approach that they use, it's apparently working well for them. And it seems like the basis for your question, maybe we're not accounting for that. Maybe we never have. I mean, not just, this year, but.
Well, I don't per se have an issue with doing the IGS fees for the various, services that council, finance, IT provide to the assessor's office, or the commissioners even, that the services that you provide to the assessor's office and the tax collector's office. My concern is if you're only spending 90% of your budget, or have only spent 45% of your budget to date, you're still drawing your 50% out of the assessor's office budget. You understand what I'm saying, Brad?
I get what you're saying.
Okay, so, and then you don't pay the services to each other. I mean, the commissioners don't pay the council services or the IT services or the finance services, and I know you use them all.
So I hear what you're saying. I see it here that, for example, looking at the commissioners, that there is no IGS expense for council and for maybe some of these others, and whereas all the other departments are paying into those funds. It seemed to make sense that there should be. I don't have an answer beyond that. I obviously wasn't here during budgeting season last year.
And I don't know how this was set up in the beginning, and it actually, I mean, the fact that you have set up IGS services makes my budgeting a little bit easier when it comes time to put together the CAFA grant. I think there's probably other departments that may not care for the IGS services, as much as maybe I do. Fortman, raise your hand back there if you're one of them. And, I'd maybe the lone cowboy that sees an inequity here, but it seems like there's an inequity, and perhaps there's a great reason for it. I think probably these IGS services were set up maybe even when Gary Short was the finance director, so, and that's been some time ago.
So, thank you for the question, Mr. Colon. Brad, you understand the question, so
yep,
give
I understand
you a
the
chance to
question.
look into it and,
I'll look into it and.
All right, thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask.
Absolutely. Give you a chance
Thank you
to
for
look into
supporting
that.
us.
Okay.
Pardon?
Thank you for supporting the BOC office.
Well, that's where I want to be.
Does anyone have any questions for Brad before we move on?
No, sir.
Mr. Fortman, you're up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just real quick while he's coming up, there were some pretty valid compliments of different departments that went on yesterday, and, I hope now's a good time to offer that the sheriff, the assessor, the clerk, they've all got, even the juvenile department, 20 years serving the county.
Mm-hmm.
So those are really good resources, good go-to people that have devoted their lives to this county, and so Assessor Colon and Clerk Colon and the Sheriff, and there's more, So I just want to offer a compliment that it's really a value to this county. So thank you for letting me take that time.
You're looking at 3.
I'll just make a quick comment back. This is my first appearance before this committee, and this is the first time we've been budgeted and we didn't vote into it. We're not going to be very prepared for it. So. Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out what the process here. Code enforcement became a self-funding department last year. When the budget was written, code enforcement had very little input into it. I suddenly was handed a budget at the end without ever being discussed, and seeing IGSs and all these different bills in there, and I'm going, oh my God, where are we at? My main concern with our budget is that code enforcement is not a money-making business for itself. But code enforcement creates other departments making revenue. And a great example is our building permits are up, our planning permits are up. Mm-hmm. Everything's up, and that's up because code enforcement's out there and people know they have to come in here and deal with it. And when the budget was created for us, it was created where a couple of IGSs pay parts of our budget, but the main income was predicated on 2 revenue sources to balance our budget out: dog licensing and out-of-county property owner registration. So the problem's trying to listen to what you want. Is the problems is in dog licensing, we are still trying to negotiate a contract between the county and the shelter. The current contract that's in existence gets 100% of every dog license goes to the shelter. Penny zero comes to us. Mm. On top of that, the dog shelter gets all the fees for impound, for boarding, for all the expenses that were occurring. And we're not getting it because we don't have this contract in place. And I understand at midterms it was right around $26,000 in dog licenses were recovered, and the contract we're looking at $15,000. $26,000 in dog licenses means we're paying $120 a day to board a dog in our shelter.
Mm.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's out of line. The other part of that income provocation was that traditionally, we know nationally, 18% of the population license their dogs. In Curry County, it's less than 1%. Currently, when we took it over, there was nobody, again, pushing for dog licenses. We obtained the software, we obtained deals with different partners to pushed the sales of dog licenses, and the dog licenses numbers are going up. We have not pushed flipping the key and going public to create the income that we anticipate within the year of right around $100,000. At 18% is actually $150,000 for the number of dogs. Because again, I don't want all the revenue going to the shelter.
Right.
That's supposed to be paying my budget. So that's the first problem. The second problem was that the previous finance commission, director of operations took the program of out-of-county property registration and decided it was going to be a revenue maker for the county. So originally what was talked about was a $10, $25 fee, went up to a $120 fee, which then the board at the recommendation split the income from that 65% to the sheriff, 15% for the collection things, and then the remaining come to code enforcement. That we're the ones out there dealing with this 90% of the time with this. The second problem we have on meeting our goals was the information that the revenue estimates were based upon were property numbers provided which were in error. And multiple properties were counted multiple times, and those fees would never be recovered. We identified that after the billing. The ordinance was put in without a penalty fee for not paying. So we got about a 30% compliance, $101,000 in the first 6 months of the program, which is pretty good. But again, if you take 65% of that away and give it to the sheriff, and I'm not trying to cheat other departments, but again, if you're trying to make code enforcement a self-paying department, we're not going to do it with these kinds of revenue estimates. Code enforcement is law enforcement, and it's not a money-making issue. So those are our projections of problems with it. And the only way to be fixed is get the animal contract in place and make a decision what we want to do with the property revenue.
So I know there's going to be some questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Herzog.
Dave, how are we close to getting a contract with the shelter? Or
it's on a workshop for the next workshop.
Okay.
Bill at the animal shelter is aware of it. He's preparing for it, and we'll discuss it at that point.
Okay.
Mr. Pash.
We tried to deal with this last year, and the board kind of dropped the ball on it, I think. There were some issues that we had to get corrected, and never followed through with, I think.
When you say shelter, are you talking about the Gold Beach shelter?
Correct.
Okay, not the South Coast Humane Society.
Now, one penny goes to South Coast Shelter in this money, which is inappropriate. And the contracts are talking about paying people for the kennel cost, and then us getting reimbursed by the owners when they redeem their dogs.
Do you have a scheduled workshop on this?
The workshop is scheduled on the 17th. The agenda hasn't been put together yet.
But I'm shooting for one for the 10th because we got some semi-emergencies here.
Yeah,
and this might be one of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that are going to come up. Absolutely. I just have you talked to South Coast Humane about them? Yeah, proposing something to you, because I know their costs may be considerably different.
Understood. Right now, we're working on a verbal agreement with South Coast that animals that are impounded in there, they collect the impound fee and the boarding costs and all that, so they're not losing money right now.
Right.
So the problem we have with the Gold Beach shelter is we need to have a guarantee of X number of spaces to walk an animal in the middle of the night. And South Coast, for example, fills up in their kennels and
Yep.
we don't have a place.
Yeah. I mean, she's moving quite a few animals through there. I also know that she is probably most likely going to expand and create an off-site facility. That's in the future, so that might be something to consider to work into this. I don't know what the timeline is. I mean, I just overhearing conversations. Obviously, Jennifer's my wife.
So say, do you know somebody?
Oh, I do. I do. But she's pretty innovative and creative, and I know that she has some long-term plans that might fit into the county's needs, and might, you know, might be a reduced cost in that area that could benefit everyone.
Well, and the other part of it's the county and the public is it's not just about sheltering found dogs and aggressive dogs. It's providing low-cost spay and neuter, low-cost vaccination.
Yeah.
We need money to get those programs going that the public needs to education programs. And Jennifer has worked with me quite extensively on that.
Yeah. She speaks very highly of you, and I know you guys have a very good working relationship. And she's got. I would encourage you to maybe invite her to that workshop, and she's got some long-term plans that will fit in, and she's also pretty creative when it comes to exactly what you just said, and has quite a few ideas, and has looked at what other successful counties are doing regarding this, and she could offer some help there.
And if I may, I'd just like to clarify on the property registration thing, so I'm not sounding like I'm trying to be greedy on this, but law enforcement and code enforcement have come into a pretty good agreements as where we're at and what we do. And code enforcement is dealing with the chronic problems out in properties, the dumps, the squatters, the transients, all these issues. And, you know, Sheriff's Department has to respond to some of the same properties. They get a benefit because now we are getting the database of who the owners are and what should be out there for emergencies and disasters that we're sharing with the Sheriff's Department. But again, it's my staff that's out there in the trenches every day trying to deal with this. And because of the money problems, it makes our job harder because Article 10 of the county ordinances gives for enforcement. You try to co-opt somebody into abating the problem. You try to enforce them if they don't educate, then enforce. That's a citation. Or the county has the option of cleaning it up and billing the property owner, putting a lien on it. And we have, unfortunately, a lot of 70, 80-year-old people in this county that can't afford to put food on their table, and we can't turn around and give them a $5,000 bill to clean up their property. But their neighbors are suffering because their garbage and their sewage is running onto somebody else's property. And we don't have the money to fix it. And that's probably the biggest complaint I get from the public is, you've been dealing with this for a year, Mr. Code Enforcement Officer. What have you done to get this done?
Mr. Boyce.
Well, I did hear you say it's costing the county $120 a day per animal.
We averaged 200 dog days in the shelter last year. So if you take the amount of money of the licenses, $26,000, and divided by 200, is what I did to come up.
Okay, I'm not saying that that's a good or bad deal. I mean, I don't.
That's a terrible deal.
Expenses are what they are. But the reason I ask about that is because 2 years ago we had an IGA agreement with Coos County where their jail was full with the capacity they could handle due to budget issues. So we were taking anywhere from 8 or 10. I think it only lasted a year because I think they got those problems resolved. But Douglas County, Coos County, Curry County, coincidentally, all are right about $110 a day per inmate with everything. Now, that's an old figure. Does that ring somewhat true with you?
Approximate.
Yeah. So it's not somewhat common around Oregon, but specifically to those three counties. So gives you an idea. That's all what it's worth.
That's out of whack.
If I may respond, Commissioner.
120?
The $120 a day, that's just mathematics that comes out there. And that's the out-of-county's cost, loss of revenue. Gold Beach Shelter collects a $40 impound fee for every dog we bring in. even though it's our staff going out there at 2 o'clock in the morning and grabbing the dog and bringing him in. They're getting the $40 impound fee. They're getting the $15 a day to feed the animal fees. So they're making a lot more money, which will come in the workshop, than this.
All I'm saying, it might just be revenue. It may not be under the profit category, but just, you know, expenses versus, yeah.
Well, I understand.
Depends on the dog food, right?
I'm not trying to take money out of somebody else's budget, but my staff and I, we work 24/7, 365. We have not gotten one penny of overtime. We've done it without it and comp time. And then we have citizens paying for an impound, which should be paying for our fee and our gas and our vehicle and all the other jazz to go out and deal with it. And the private industry is getting that money, not us.
Brad?
I was just going to say this is probably good discussion for a workshop.
Correct.
Anyway, if there's anything else you
It sounds like it's good discussion for workshop, but a lot of this can be worked out at a workshop.
Right.
It sounds like, and the three of you will make decisions ultimately in line or correcting a lot of the budget issues related to this. It sounds like. Am I correct in that?
Yes. That's one, and you and I spoke the other day, and I will next week. You and I can get together and we can start to move some of this forward.
And again, I don't want to sound, thank you, Commissioner. I don't want to sound antagonistic. This being my first time in front of the board, I wasn't prepared to do. Listening to Brad's presentation of problems, that's the problems I'm seeing, is trying to balance the income and expenses for a group that's really nonprofit.
And it sounds like rather than beat this up too much more, give you three a chance to evaluate, assess, and make the adjustments that are necessary to balance that. I think it's definitely doable. You know, you're a problem solver and you're doing a great job. I mean, I've seen you out there interact with people personally, and you know what you're doing. But I think there's a couple adjustments that probably be made and clear everything up.
Well, thank you for that comment.
Any questions for Dave?
I've got a comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, I just wanted to, Jim Colton, County Assessor, I just wanted to clarify something that Dave said, and I was just listening to it on my computer, so I'm not sure if I heard him right, but with regard to the property registration ordinance, you said the numbers were inept?
No, I didn't say inept. What occurred was the previous Director of Operations requested data from your department. That data was provided according to their request, so there's nothing there. But it turned out that where they thought there was X number of properties, a lot of the bills were actually subdivided on the properties, and that's where the revenue projection came out, thinking that there was.
Good. I thought that he had the correct explanation. When we were going through the property registration ordinance, actually, I think this occurred at budget time last year, I mentioned that we send, over 30% of the tax statements to property owners that are out of the county. Sometime after that, Schmelzer asked me for a listing of those properties. I didn't know what you wanted to use it for. And as it turns out, then this idea of a property registration ordinance came up. And I came to the Board of the Commissioners at that time because I knew which list she was using. And I mentioned to the Board of Commissioners at that time, that's not an accurate number. There were 6,000 or 7,000 account numbers on that list, but a lot of them were doubled up because we split properties into two accounts for many reasons. Some of it's fire patrol, some of it's because properties straddle a section line, and so it's a mapping thing. And I told the board at that time and the Director of Operations that the actual number of properties on that list is grossly inflated. She didn't listen to me. So this is why we have probably less income for the property registration ordinance than what was actually budgeted. I just wanted to make that clarification.
All right, thank you.
If I may just add one other one.
Sure, Dave.
I'm sorry. Everything that the assessor says is true, but there is a bunch of income out there still to be made. We only saw a 30% response to the letters of the individual properties when we sorted them out. So there's still a whole number of people out there that just haven't responded, decided we're not going to do this until we do some kind of enforcement action on it. The software that the board approved for the complaint process for the whole county, reporting concerns that we share, is the software we're using to now go after these people. The request for a penalty fee was put in front of the board with the January fee adjustment request. So now we have that tool to go after. So we're hoping to increase the revenue, but again, and there is a big pool out there we need to go after.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, obviously we're running behind, so Becky? BC.
Hello, everybody. I brought my trusty numbers person, Penny. I don't have a lot to say here about planning, except that we continue to really hustle downstairs. Last year, we doubled the amount of applications that we processed from the year before. This year, we're up about 20% so far in comparison to last year. So we do continue to hustle. The dilemma with that is that we haven't been doing any long-range planning, and we're going up against the third legislative session where there have been land use changes that have come out of the legislature, which we have not been accounting for. They're in my head, and that's dangerous. And we're getting ready to hire another person in our department to help deal with some of the administrative tasks, so hopefully that will free up some of our time. There's really 5 of us down there, and every day is a hustle. I take phone calls like anybody else. We're all doing whatever we can do to address the public as they come in. As far as revenues on planning, we're about 70% of projected forecast for the year, so we're already way ahead of the ball game as far as bringing money in. Our expenditures are a little bit lower. One of the things with COVID is we haven't had as many planning commission meetings. I try to do most of the decisions administratively. The only concern about that is making sure that I do a really good job so they aren't subject to appeal, and people that are concerned about those applications understand that even if they do appeal, they probably aren't going to be successful. So we've been able to have people not appeal as many decisions as have been appealed in the past. So that decreases our expenditures like public notices, things like that.
And prep work.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So that's planning. Are there any questions about planning?
No.
Okay. The next item is in regards to the DEQ program. We've just started the DEQ program. That's on contract with Josephine County. The situation is we just started that November 15th, so we haven't had a lot of time. Right. We have collected some money. It looks like we've collected about $14,000. 80% of that does go back to Josephine County, and some of that also goes back to cover DEQ's fees. So we don't get a lot of that money. Right now, we're just watching the program, addressing a lot of the questions that are coming up. I think it's working, sort of. We do have one contractor in South County who's not real happy with the program, but we're continuing to try to make it successful, and probably in the next 6 months we'll come back and have a discussion with you about how successful that is.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Is this for on-site septic primarily? Good.
Yes, thank you, John.
So, as a coincidence, it's 10 o'clock, and that was the time we had notice for the public hearing in the newspaper on adoption of the fees for this exact program. I don't see anyone here, and then we'll just, it'll come up on the commissioner agenda. We'll talk about it, that we are here and talked about it, and nobody appeared. So thanks very much. Sorry for the interruption, but appreciate, that was strange timing.
We definitely want to hear Penny.
Okay. Are there any questions about this septic program?
Thanks, Becky. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Good
for
job down there.
Thank you both.
getting us back on track.
Yeah. Way to go.
All right, let's take a 15-minute break. How's that?
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset, while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Wildfire, as everyone knows, has emerged as one of the big major issues affecting Oregon and, for that matter, all western states. A real actionable response that's including how do we fight fire, actively managing our forests so that we don't have the fuels out there, and how are we going to protect communities from smoke exposures. The council is really set up to have a comprehensive strategy that's based on action and based on protecting our communities.
The primary focus we as a board have come through with is that in researching the policies for fire management, yes, prescribed fire has its place on the landscape, but not during fire season. We, as a county, passed a proclamation that says once the state fire marshal declares fire season, it'll be nothing but full suppression, and recently took a resolution to the National Association of Counties, essentially says that they support coordination between agencies and local governments for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens regarding fire, prescribed fire, fire season, anything that affects our citizens.
This is Lily Morgan from Josephine County, and we are at the Rogue Leadership Forum today looking at the best possible partnerships that we can come up with to fight the fire issues and the smoke issues that we're facing in Southwest Oregon. So looking forward to coming up with solutions and the partnerships to get the job done so we don't face what we have the last few years with catastrophic fires and smoke that invades our communities for months to come. So this is a good opportunity, and we hope to be successful in the outcome.
Seeing so many people come together has really been exciting for me because there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of resources, and as we attempt to do a shared stewardship approach to keeping people safe, it's really important that we get together. So my name is Merv George Jr., and I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. One of the first things is making sure to get fires out if they're threatening life and property. The second thing that I'm going to focus in on is when it's safe to do so, to put some fire on the landscape when it's cooler and not during fire season, to reduce these same fuels that are giving us so much fits during the fire season.
Bob Horton, I'm the Fire Chief of Jackson County Fire District 3 in Southern Oregon. The challenges that are facing us in terms of the mega fires and the wildfires that we've been experiencing out in this valley, particularly in the last couple of years, but across the state and across the region, incredibly concerning to us in the fire community, those in our communities in general, our constituents and our patrons are extremely concerned, as they ought to be. And really the takeaway from the work that's being done now is this is an extraordinary collaboration of dozens on dozens of interested stakeholder groups who are coming together with a common purpose. It's really an inspiring showing of humanity to not only be able to provide for a greater quality of life for our people, but to be strong stewards of our land, so that our future for us and generations to come is incredibly bright.
Very pressing issue. It's bearing down on us. Fire season is approaching, and I am really interested in preventing my home and other homes in my community from being impacted by wildfire, specifically from being burnt down. That's my main reason for being involved.
Quite a collaboration of folks. We're here looking for practical solutions to help us unravel some of the issues surrounding wildfires today here in the state of Oregon. And my focus really is on planning for large wildfire events in advance of their occurrence. That way, when they do occur, we can respond more appropriately to those situations.
Well, I just think it's grand if all of the people all over the state have come together today to be concerned about water. It just warms my heart, because I know that they really will leave here today feeling more impressed about the water, because I have told them that we're all born in water. We cannot live without it. It's our job to take care of it, stop the garbage in the rivers and streams and oceans, because there's life in that water, and it's our job to keep it clean for them. Because we cannot live on this planet without the animal kingdom. I was in Ohio at the Ohio River with Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist who had proven water could heal. He and I stood on the riverbank and blessed the Ohio River that they had us come to do. And I prayed that God has still kept the river good for them over there. We were taught when we were little that prayer works. You too will remember your prayers, because they work. It has nothing to do with religion or church.
Why do counties matter? Simple. Counties provide the services we all depend on. If you're concerned about crime, get a regular flu shot. Drive to work. Take public transportation. Or experience a natural disaster in your community. Chances are you benefit from county services. That's why counties matter. With America's system of federalism, counties are a key level of government, serving the people directly. So, do you vote? Had a recent hospital stay? Know someone in a nursing home? More reasons why counties matter. There are 3,069 counties across the country, with populations big and small. Most of us live and work in one. Even the nation's capital is considered a county. These county governments ensure that the food you eat in restaurants is safe. They care for the mentally ill, run court systems, build local economies, and operate 911 emergency systems. They manage parks and recreation facilities, and the list goes on. Thing is, counties serve the American people in so many ways, keeping our communities healthy, vibrant, safe, and fiscally sound. That's why counties matter.
Hi there, I'm Patrick Priest, Executive Director at CIS. And I really enjoy coming every year to this conference because CIS, we are all about counties. We are owned by counties. We were formed by the AOC. This is a great occasion for us to meet everybody in one place and learn what's important to the counties all across Oregon.
It's the networking. I mean, we learn a lot about the different issues that counties deal with, but it's networking with other commissioners, getting ideas on how they handle situations that is the most helpful for me.
I love my job. It actually matters to me on a daily basis. I used to do a lot of charity, and, you know, in commissioning in Deschutes County, you can make a serious difference. Lots of things have happened since I've been in office, and I feel like it's important to represent the people. I grew up in Eastern Oregon, and I love the residents of Eastern Oregon. The architect of our first house actually had Doris Day as a dear friend and a client, and he would bring Doris Day up the mountains in Malibu to our house as it was being built.
This is my fourth conference at AOC. My favorite part is the fellowship with other commissioners and coming up with solutions with common situations and with commissioners from around the state to best serve our people. My favorite part about being a commissioner in Josephine County is the people that we work with. We live in the most beautiful place, but we have the most beautiful people. They are talented, artistic, caring. We have such a high level of philanthropy and just caring for our fellow citizens, and it's the best place in all of Oregon.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Martha Schrader from Clackamas County, Oregon. I'm the current president of the Association of Oregon Counties. Oh my goodness, I've been president for 1 year, but I've been a member of the Association of Oregon Counties since 2003. So one of the reasons I really wanted to be president, and I've enjoyed it so much, is because I get to know everybody across the state, all the commissioners, and I've been from one end of the state to the other, visiting with them, talking with them, and really getting an idea of how we differ, but more importantly, what our similarities are and what we can do with one another to move forward with good county government.
I've been coming to AOC now for 4 years. My favorite part of serving as commissioner is trying to bring positive effects for our community and our county.
This is my second year at AOC, and the camaraderie that I've found in my Eastern Oregon partners and just the camaraderie of AOC has really blessed my life.
My name is Court Boyce, Curry County Commissioner. This is a collection of people, county commissioners, public officials, well attended from all over the state. You know, I have the privilege of working with a very diverse group of people, different ages, different backgrounds, different interests, but they're all teaming up to solve the problems of our county. And it's just really a pleasure to be able to be connected with and working with those people. And better days, good days ahead for our county and our citizens.
Hi, I'm Joe DeBolskis. This is my third AOC convention, and my favorite part is the networking with the people. And the breakout sessions are kind of good because it gives me something to focus on, a goal where I want the county to be in 5 years when my term is up.
Hi, I'm Tillamook County Commissioner Dave Yamamoto. Our county college class.
All right, we are, everyone's here and present, ready to continue. Any issues we need to bring up before we do? All right, building.
You don't look like Mark.
I do not. Good morning, Kenny Hudgens, Office Manager for Community Development.
Morning.
Good morning. So on the building side, we are about 54% for our income, so we expect to have to be a little bit over budget by the end of the year. We are down a little bit on permits issued, and for this same time period for last year, and most of that is based on COVID. And you know, there's still activity going on, but not as much as we expected would probably normally occur. Expenses, we should be pretty much in line. We've got a few items that we're going to be under budget, and we've got a few that are over, but as an overall scenario, it should be just fine. Any questions?
That was an outstanding presentation.
And as Becky mentioned, the 5 people, that does include building, planning, and septic. So. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I think I see Director Crockett coming this way.
Oh, is she?
Oh, she went by. Oh, there she is.
You've been summoned? No.
Guess so.
Everything's good for me.
I don't have anything to add on building. I'm sure Penny has covered it all. I just wanted to make sure she didn't feel she was up here by herself.
Good. Too late.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next summer.
Summer's next. Maybe she's
going on around the back way.
She's going the other way. Right on time.
Jump right in. The water's great.
Oh yeah.
We're moving along.
Oh no, we're ahead of schedule.
You're up. Reverse. That'll teach you to come early.
Oh.
Oh. Sorry, bud. I didn't see anything worth hearing anyway. Good morning, Miss Madison.
Good morning.
Thanks for being early, Summer.
You're welcome. Okay. Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Chair Alcorn. Summer Madison Economic Development. And let's see. Since I couldn't go get my ruler, I'll figure this out another way. Starting on our budget, you'll see transient lodging tax has done quite well.
Chris, pass that to her. Oops, sorry.
Revenues. Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, cool.
I don't use it.
Thank you. Okay. So you'll see this revenue transient lodging tax. That $25,000 is for staff salaries, and I believe that just not enough has come out of that yet. We expect that most of that will be used for supplementing the assistant's position. Of course, permits for OLCC are down considerably because we haven't had any events really. Business licensing, so we budgeted $20,000 based on the number of businesses that we were actually able to identify initially. Right now we're at 172 licenses received.
I know that there needs to be some time dedicated and committed to focusing on that solely. Lottery, of course, that's down a little bit because of COVID. Let's see, donations, that's currently at 150. So that's the fund that we use to purchase the lights and materials for Patterson Memorial Bridge. And also, once we've got that met, the balance of that will go to kind of a small business slush fund. That trans in for economic development, that's from TLT. County parks currently transfers in for an IGS per se of $5,000 for tourism and promotions. This other general fund, non-something, I have no idea what that is, but I'll cover it. TLT revenues is there again. That needs to be cleaned up. Allocated interest, couldn't tell you. And then your salaries. So this is where we're over budget a bit, anywhere from 51 to 58%, and that is because the allocations from the TLT have yet to be transferred to that budget, which will actually bring us back to where we need to be. Okay, let's see. Okay, professional services, training and education. There are a few expenses that are not in there yet, but we have spent more than that. Community education, I'm super grateful that we have that because we've also used that as a means to get the word out there with COVID. Nothing there. Our cell phone is over a little bit. That's because there was a couple of months where when we were all working remotely, Miranda was covering the Bach office and that shot her bill up by about $100. Let's see, other copying, printing. We're actually doing good on the copying, printing, considered we had to print out so much for the grant that we received. We printed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Meals and lodging, of course, we're doing amazing.
Excuse me.
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to brag on that effort.
Okay.
Sorry,
Motor
Ms.
pool, of course, I'm super excited. We're under budget on there too, because the last fiscal year, we didn't budget for 2 staff persons in that. So that was a bit of a panic last year. So we're right on track now. Let's see, postage. So we're going to end up bringing that budget down next year because after the initial implementation of TLT and business licensing, we're not mailing enough to justify having the postage machine, which is $17.99 a month. So that'll save us a couple of $100 over the year.
I got a quick question there.
Mm-hmm.
So do you, just postage machines, do we have one for the whole county, or is that just for your department?
Just for our department. Initially, when we had an administrative services department downstairs, that was kind of the place that you would go if you needed office supplies, mail sorted that came in and went out. And that was good till about 2012 when we had to make budget cuts. And then everybody was kind of responsible for their own stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know Jim probably has one, and
He might actually use.
We don't share. We don't share here.
Bulk mail. Well, you would think that would be the most. Anyways, Juvenile has one. They use theirs a lot.
Tell us what you
I
really
don't mean
think.
to laugh, Summer.
I'm not.
Logic always wins out, doesn't it?
It's okay. I'm just getting the feel of it because I'm all about sharing when we don't need to spend, if we can share. So, anyway.
Okay. Office supplies, we're pretty decent there. Did have probably more than we expected. This is not current as far as I know, just because I know I've had more than that expended in COVID alone. Event foods, we've used absolutely nothing, but we're hoping to pull that tourism and promotions committee in with some food, like, come create a quorum and we'll feed you.
Right.
we'll see how that goes. Pretty on track for other materials and services. Books and periodicals. I know there's more expenses than that as well because I've purchased quite a few books this year. Dues and memberships is going great. We've been pretty conservative given that we had to cut $17,000 out of our budget last year. And so that took away from a lot of these expenditures that we would typically have. So honestly, COVID was a blessing to our budget as far as being able to meet the requirement of that cut. Okay, and then your IGSs, you're welcome. Okay, so a couple of things. The fiscal year salary expenditures for COVID reimbursement for this fiscal year's $13,129. And the reason why it's so low for this fiscal year is because I'm salaried, and as a coordinator, I don't accrue or get paid for overtime. So it honestly it's probably double that. Let's see. So then fiscal year materials and services, COVID reimbursement for that is $15,775. So total COVID costs that we can track in the budget this fiscal year for economic development is $28,904. So I had spoke with Director of Operations Schmelzer about the reimbursements because I know that she was diligent about collecting those and making sure that we put in for those reimbursements. What I don't agree with in that process is that those funds are going into the general fund where they did not come out of, as far as my concern. So not only was I faced this fiscal year with COVID and working with $17,000 less, but I'm basically funding the general fund out of the economic development budget because those reimbursements are not coming back to my budget. So I am going to ask that that be planned and considered because otherwise it's not efficient. Okay.
Brad, you had a comment?
As far as COVID reimbursements, those will be flowing back to budgets sometime later this year.
Later this year? So next fiscal year?
We opted not to do it on a monthly, quarterly basis because of the complexity and time that it would take. But by the end of the year, the plan is to move those back to departments.
And I really appreciate that because, as you know, the economic development's been dissolved because the budget was not managed efficiently enough in the opinion of some electeds. I'm not going to allow that to happen to the extent that when we get to the TLT budget here, you'll see that that we've got an expense. Well, that's for January, so never mind. But anyways, I want to make sure that just because of COVID, we didn't have that cushion to support our small businesses. So we did what we could to make it work in partnership with the Board of Commissioners, but I'm going to tell you what, we're not going to let that happen again. So we're very protective of that, and I appreciate you guys thinking forward in what that looks like before fiscal year actually gets here. All right. So super good news.
Page 64.
Oh, my apologies. 64.
Thank you.
Transient lodging tax. I'm not really sure why I'm even speaking to this. I probably could have had Miranda in here and she would have done a much better job. We are well over anticipated revenues for TLT, and this is astonishing. Everybody's kind of surprised at this, especially during COVID. So we are grateful for this. Let's see. So the last fiscal year, we had 3 quarters collected for in TLT. The revenue on that was over 500. It was almost 520,000. So far for this fiscal year, we've collected for 2 quarters, and the total so far is $671,000. And I wrote something up, and then I thought I was going to be too passionate about it. Hi. Wow. Okay, Miranda. That you've received. Received and processed. Okay. So, well, So that just means that some of them are either nonprofits. What we're doing is we're trying to encourage everyone to register or receive a business license, even though they may not owe the money or the fee, because we want that pulled into our first responders program that we're working on with code enforcement. And that's even a bigger support for the Curry Economic Alliance that we are working on, not calling it chamber. But yeah, that's kind of part of the bigger picture and working closer with our other departments. Sorry, I'm off track. So anyways, Miranda says that we have 318 businesses registered. So I would assume about a third of what that is nonprofits or not generating, bringing in the revenue. So a big part of economic development is law enforcement. And people don't want to stay out after dark. People don't feel safe walking in their own communities, and people don't want to come visit if they don't know they're going to be safe. And that includes your fire districts, that includes your search and rescue. Not only that, but the equipment that they need to function as efficiently as possible. And yesterday when Sheriff was sharing about the Snowcat or whatever piece of machine that he was acquiring, I was so grateful, because I know that what we don't want on our hands is we lost a life because we didn't have that piece of equipment. And so how much is a life really worth, right? So I'm extremely excited that the portion of revenue that we clearly, like, under budgeted, funds the sheriff's office too. And that means more support for him. And I don't know if you've noticed lately, but you've put an emphasis on funding the sheriff. And look where they've come the past 18 months. Incredible. Okay, so anyways, we're on track with TLT. We do have the $15,000 Dine to Stay expenditure that will be coming out. You'll see that in my economic development budget. So do I get an extra 15 minutes or?
For what?
I don't know, but I'm supposed to be here right now, technically, so.
Did you want to keep talking?
I would say,
Nope, I would like to go back to work.
just my thought. If she needs a little extra time, are we okay with that?
Absolutely.
I don't, but if you guys have questions.
Caitlin's not here. Caitlin's not here yet anyway, so.
Yeah.
I do think along the lines of law enforcement, I'm 100% agree with you how important that is to what you're doing. And, you know, it circles back to that 24/7 coverage issue. You know, I mean, that's a big leap, but, you know, in today's world, man, it'd sure be nice to have those deputies out there readily available to immediately respond to those critical incidents.
So a really perfect example of how this impacts us financially and long term is the Cherry Stem annexation of the mill site with the city of Gold Beach, right? And we visited about that this week, and we went ahead and voted unanimously to annex that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the biggest caveat to that is that the sheriff's department doesn't have 24-hour coverage to respond out there. And if we're going to expand that, and we're going to make you know, that a priority as far as TLT revenue is concerned, that certainly needs to be considered. So I was like, you know what, you're right. I wish we did have the staff to do that, and we don't. But we could, especially if we start thinking in a greater scope than just how it immediately affects our services.
Got a question, Summer. So you said that you voted, is this the city or?
City council.
So the city council voted unanimously to incorporate that into the city limits or the urban growth boundary, or?
Apologies. Yeah, it's already part of the urban growth boundary.
Okay.
So the technicality was, and in this, we're just moving forward, actually. We haven't adopted it. But the technicality was proper notice to the county.
Oh, okay.
And so they have addressed that.
So from the bridge, I don't even know where the city limits end. Is it at the bridge?
Pretty much.
And, how far, any distance up Jerry's Flat?
Yeah, it just goes right to where the old landing used to be.
Okay.
Okay, just about there, and then Cherry Stem's literally on the road until the mill site.
And that's the optimal word there. Sorry.
What?
It's a cherry stem, which
Absolutely.
is very not ever favorably looked upon.
Cherry stem.
In my
Okay,
opinion.
that was okay.
In my opinion, that's
I
not
agree.
anyone else's opinion, but I think the way it was annexed, in my opinion, it shouldn't have been allowed, but it was done.
Yeah, I
It
will
will
say
cost
that
the county a lot of money down the road.
it will, and I don't think the city understands how often the sheriff is responding out there for a myriad of things. One of the caveats that I did ask is that they consider some form of security services when they begin to develop, because I'm pretty sure they're going to expand from there.
One more thing on that, I'm sure the criminals know when the sheriff's department isn't on the road.
you
And that's
bet
when they
do.
plan a lot of their stuff is, there's no sheriff between 1 and 5, so let's move then. But the other issue to this cherry stem is I can't imagine the confusion to the public. If you've got a call, you've got a sheriff's deputy, and yeah, they'll probably respond, but it's not the sheriff's responsibility to go to that property now, so it becomes confusing to the public, and it's going to create dissension among the public because they're like, well, the sheriff just drove right by and he didn't answer the call. Well, it's city property now.
I can guarantee you I addressed that situation at the meeting.
It's going to be a huge nightmare.
Mr. Boyce.
Do you feel like elaborating just a little bit on how how you see that overcoming? Because I don't know between the 2, 3, 4 law enforcement where they aren't really aware of helping, and I don't think they're going to drive by and just ignore if there's if there's citizens in any kind of trauma, stress, whatever.
Well, I think law enforcement functions similarly to fire districts, even though fire districts have more of a formal agreement. Law enforcement always has each other's back. I mean, push comes to shove, and you cross the bridge in Checo, on the Checo River, typically Brookings stops. But if there is concern for the officer's safety, you can guarantee
Yes.
they can't respond quick enough. They all have each other's back. But, that can't become a habit with a property that is, a few miles up the river that will take away services from a resident in Hunter Creek. And so that was my argument.
Mr. Pash.
My point wasn't that they wouldn't respond, Chair. My point was more that if someone calls 911, they're going to call the city Gold Beach Police and not the sheriff's department to react. And if the city police are busy, of course the sheriff will respond. I'm just saying it's going to cause confusion to the public on who should respond and why. And of course, I would imagine our sheriff's a little frustrated with it as well, as he's said publicly.
Yes, he is. And that's understandable.
So I'm a little slow on the uptake here on this cherry stem. So you could live up Saunders Creek and you're not covered, you're not in the city limits. The stem goes out, and then the cherry is the old mill site.
Yep.
I got you. Okay, so that's okay.
And that was decided when they did the urban growth boundary definitions between the county and the city. So there was already an expectation on the county's behalf that at some point that property was eligible for annexation into city limits because they worked with the city to set that up. Yeah.
Mr. Boyce.
Since we're on this subject, do you feel like there's a way that we can pull the city and the county together on this?
I do, absolutely.
Sounds
I hope
like
you do
you're
too.
already on that. Thank you.
Well, I
Just
do my best.
I'm
Not
not putting it all on your head, but I think you have a good approach to how to achieve that.
Yeah, I think.
I think it's really important if there's a way.
I think respect is a big deal, and so are relationships, and so is trust. So this board is on the right track, and I'm excited to see that continue. And if we could start, I know Commissioner Pash and Schmelzer had headed up almost like a Council of Governments type meeting every month or so. Even Milliman came, and it was very helpful rebuilding those relationships and trust. And then COVID hit, but I've got to say our relationships with the cities and in my department is never been that great. Port Orford's looking for a city administrator, so having those conversations with Port Orford and helping them to find a good fit and because that's critical to our relationships.
But you said it's never been great?
Not in the past few years.
What, do you
It's
think
been inconsistent and rocky since Huxley was in office.
Okay, do you think it's improving? I don't mean to put you on the spot. That's my wish, and that's I see that sometimes with all three cities. And but yes, there are issues, and it's our responsibility to reach out, and I think we have. Anyway, excuse me. Go ahead,
Commissioner
Mr.
Pash,
Chairman.
you had a comment?
Well, I just want to comment that when Schmelzer and I started what we asked for was all the city leaders and county leaders to get together and let's talk about the state of the county right now and how can we work together as a team. And all we heard from, somewhat from Brookings, very little from Port Orford, but a lot from Gold Beach, was the lack of trust that they have in county government and the way the county's run. And I don't think that that's improved much in the last 2 years. It's improved some, and I disagree somewhat on the stopping of the meetings. It was pre-COVID that they started to fall off, and I want to say Gold Beach tried to participate in all those meetings, but Brookings started to fall off, and Port Orford completely stopped coming, and I don't know if they thought we weren't getting anything accomplished, but it was just nice to sit and talk about the issues in the county. But I will say that the most pushback we got was from Gold Beach, trusting the county, because they felt like they've been mistreated over the years, or not told everything. So.
I'll speak to this for just a minute because from a city council member perspective, in our last city council meeting, I made a motion to create a liaison position between the Brookings City Council and the county, and I volunteered for that position. That was approved and is in progress now. So my thoughts behind that were to start with the county because I already have relationships with everyone, and start that communication process and revisit what Commissioner Pash had originally done, and further develop those relationships. So talking with everybody the past couple days, I think that's gonna be beneficial. And the purpose of it was not for the city to tell the county what to do, the county to tell the city what to do, not at all. It was simply to have lines of communication established so that when we have critical incidents or critical issues, COVID, fires, floods, whatever it may be, we can all be on the same page and be a more effective form of government. Yes. My thought was to start with the county and then extend that invitation to the other cities so that we're all at the table and we're all talking regularly about our needs and our issues. We have a homeless issue. We have issues with fires. All of those things are going to come up. This summer we'll be busy with those things. I would certainly extend that to Port Orford, to Gold Beach, and bring everybody to the table. I know Janelle and I have been working on that, so expect that to come.
Great. All right. That's great to hear. If I may interject, that is, there's also a lot of ways to save money.
Absolutely.
It's going to take long term, not short term, but that trust has got to be rebuilt.
Absolutely, and I think we're in the right direction. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Anything else?
Thanks, Summer.
Thank you, Summer.
It's been a pleasure.
Hey, can we have our ruler back?
Remember where you got that ruler?
My mom used to say when she said that, "It's been a pleasure. Don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way."
You want me to sanitize it first?
No. No.
So
we were just having a little fun.
So back before the cuts in 2012, office supplies were such a hot commodity that staff would write their name on the back of them. I can't tell you how many rulers I have found with names of people that I'm like, she's awesome, I never knew she worked here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Summer.
No
See you guys.
name.
Is that county issued?
I don't know.
We give out metal rulers?
All right.
Sharice here, but Coleman, or...
Oh, she's been waiting.
I'll be presenting the fair, but if she's ready, we can do her first, and
okay,
I'll do it after.
We'll take Cherie out of order.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Where do I start?
Page 92.
Yeah.
Well, you've been busy, to say the least.
To say the least, I have. There's I do want to start, I know it's not part of the budget, but it actually is. I want to say that Curry County Public Health, we successfully completed and mailed off today all school exclusion letters to parents and all of our schools and daycares. So we have met that requirement. Deadline was today. Majority of them went out last night, and this morning a handful of them went out. So we have successfully completed our immunization school law.
Good for you.
So happy
That's
about
great.
that. So, Cherie Ward, Public Health Administrator, and looks like we have a budget of pages 92 all the way down to page 99. What I can tell you is we currently have stayed within our budget. I don't know how we've done that remarkably, but we have. I think it has been due to lack of staffing as well. But what I did want to say is we have, however, received unanticipated COVID-19 CARES Fund for operating cost communicable disease work. So we have seen an increase in our revenue, which was anticipated. So that's a plus side for us. Boy, I can't believe I'm saying plus right now. It's a positive. In the very first section, you're going to see is your Public Health Administration Department. There is some cleanup that needs to happen. Majority of the expenses that comes in, and you're going to see the salary in there is over. What that is we have had staffing who actually has been doing contact tracing. And so we are putting it into funneling different activities. So it's just a little bit of cleanup. They have to be funneled into certain different funds. But other than that, and that's taken care of underneath the CARES Fund. So it just has to be a little bit more cleanup in regards to the activities. So we just need to move those out. I can tell you, other than that, most of our cost is going to be salary and benefits in public health right now. That is most of our cost. We've done really well with keeping our expenditures down and low. I can say that administration costs for BOC council, occupancy, all that was kind of a shock when I got here to see how much we're paying in regards to all those. I agree, we need to pay something. But that takes a little bit of portion out of the public health budget as well. So,
Been talking to Jim Colin?
no, I have not.
Just a little
but
levity.
I did want to say I was not in control of this budget when it first came aboard. So I am still ironing out and tweaking and kind of getting re-familiar with the budget. This is not my first rodeo with the county in regards to budget process. It has been many years, and so I just need to get better control of this budget a little bit. So environmental health funds is on page 92 or 93, and what that is that's for our environmental health budget. We have or had a staff worker who actually has resigned. His last day is going to be Friday. So we will be coming to the board in regards to rehiring. So it's either going to be rehire, kind of looking at different avenues for environmental health at this moment. We are on track though in regards to our revenue. We have already collected a little 50% for our restaurant pools and fees. Inspections. So it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to go forward in regards to environmental health. So that's on my hot list that happened in the last week and a half. So if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm always putting out fires. So we're going to be anticipating that as we go forward. Our WIC services, which is infant and children's services, we are within our budget. And we actually, they're doing very well in regards to that. One of the avenues with WIC services is we eventually will have to open back up to the public. Not sure how that's going to work with the state, how we're going to do that. There may be some office space issues, things like that we're going to have to deal with as we go forward. So we are right in line with that one. Our FEP budget, we have a FEP program, and the FEP budget is, we do have an ad out for an irregular employee for that. So we still have not successfully hired anybody, but we are still on track for that. There is money being billed out of that because part of my salary comes out of that. I am actually out of multiple facets because I am 5 people right now besides myself. So we're doing pretty well on that budget. In the mental health, the one on the very back is, and that's something we have to clean up with CENA. That is, the mental health is money that came in that CCH was handling, Curry Community Health was handling our mental health budget at school base. And so they were receiving funds. They were no longer doing that. They returned the money back to us. So as I spoke with Sina and Brad, we're going to just have to funnel that out and figure out how we're going to distribute that and where that goes. So that's what I can tell you right now in regards to public health budget. Any questions?
Mr. Roush.
On that last note, that'll become a pass-through account then for the mental health, correct?
I'm assuming it is, yes. Yeah, I don't like to assume, but based on what I know in the past, that's what it has been, yes.
Okay, and some of, in the very beginning on 92, 93, I'm just seeing some overages there, and that's, most of those are grants, so I'm guessing a lot of those haven't been fully funded yet?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's all I have, sir.
Question, so you're looking for a health inspector, is it?
Environmental health specialist, yes,
So
and
that
they are going to need to be registered, so basically they have to be certified with the state. So whether or not, and I'm looking at the qualifications in regards to that, whether or not we have to have one hired immediately that has to have the actual certification, or if it's something that they can work towards as we go forward. But yes, we are going to end up having to hire somebody for environmental health. Yes, sir. The punches keep on coming and I keep on rolling. So we'll just kind of get through it as best as we can. And if you need to know at that point, once I do lose that environmental health specialist on Friday, you will be down to 3 people in public health to go ahead and handle all of the state requirements that they are putting on us. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of requirements we have to do. So staffing as we roll forward is going to be a key issue right now, is trying to get us back up and going. Because honestly, I can do the accounting, environmental health, and I can do certain things in environmental health, but to take on environmental health on top of everything else, I don't know if I'd continue to be here. So it's one of those things. So anything else?
Any questions?
No.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Sharice.
you. It's made that easy.
Thanks, Sheree.
Hey, Commissioner Herzog?
Pardon me.
Big pen.
Okay, very good.
You got an extra ruler?
Hi, Kathy. Good.
So we could do public transit next and take that out of order. Because Brad, you're up after that, correct?
Well, I just have a quick thing to read on the fair. I've done everything on the schedule for Director of Operations.
Okay. Are you ready to go? Sure. Why don't we take that out of order and go public transit next?
Sounds good. Welcome.
Hello. I hate breathing with these things. Can I bring it down a little bit?
You can take it off if you want.
Thank heavens. I'm Kathy Bernhardt with Curry Public Transit. I'm the general manager. And most of you know me. If you don't, hello. I'm glad to meet y'all. And I hear that we're up for a review of the budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what you want, but what I've done for you is printed out a copy of what we have on our books of current and upcoming budgets. If you just want to pass that up. I need one copy of that too.
You're
So-
supposed to have that memorized, I thought.
Well, I kind of do, but I'm a numbers person, but I prefer it in writing. So, for those of you who don't know, Curry Public Transit is a nonprofit. We contract with the county and the district to run the bus services here in town. We run a dial-a-ride service in Brookings and Gold Beach, and the Coastal Express, which runs all the way from Smith River to Coos Bay and back 3 times a day. We depend upon we depend upon state and federal grants to run this service, and the county acts as a pass-through for all the money that comes through. So all of these grants that you see listed on this paper come to you to be approved, and then are sent to me. And in return, do all of the paperwork on that. So basically, all you have to do is know what's coming in and know what's going out, and let me know it's okay. Unfortunately, I've been trying for years to get you reimbursed for the money that the county expends, but I've been told I can't do that. So the only money that goes directly to the county from those grants is through the STF, the Special Transportation Fund, $2,000 a year. Goes back to the county to help reimburse the cost of
That's it.
expenses. And trust me, I'm trying to get it brought up because I know that the cost of doing the audit is like $7,000 a year. But unfortunately, ODOT does not see that as a reimbursable expense. So, anyway, so any questions I can answer?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Boyce.
It is great to see her back here. I've got to read your minutes from a week ago. 2 things. I'd not heard the term ridership before, and
We
it
use
says
it all
here
the
you're up
time.
3% over last year.
Yes. Actually, that
Amazing.
surprised me. Because of COVID,
Yes.
we've had to cut the Saturday Coastal Express, but the dial-a-ride ridership, we're still continuing in Brookings for 6 days a week, and in Gold Beach, we had 4 days a week. And our ridership has increased 3% even through COVID, which tells me that transit is a much-needed service here in Curry County. And if you look at the new expenditures for next biennium, we're going to expand the Gold Beach dial-a-ride to 5 days a week and expand their hours, and then try a Gold Beach or a Port Orford dial-a-ride 1 day a week to see how that works out. I'm getting ready to do our long-term plan. In fact, I just spoke to the Kittleson Group, which will be our people that are doing it for us. And they asked what my one goal was, and I said expanding services to the county, all of us. So I always want to see that the county is well maintained. And we do a pretty good job, but we could do better.
I see you still have, if I may, Mr. Chair, I see you still have Joanne Wassbauer on your board. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
She's a sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
She's my mentor and my hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're covering the county well. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. No other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting me in early.
Thanks for coming in.
You saved us, actually.
You did?
Perfect time slot.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I'll go back to getting on these grants now then.
Is there anything, while you're there, is there anything else that we could or should be doing to help this? We're looking
Well,
at
you
your...
should be aware that with the long-term planning process coming up in the next 2 years, we'll be coming before the county quite often to ask for advice and to let you know what we're thinking of in long-term plans. So if you have anything at all that you can think of for the next 20 years, and this is how far ahead it's going to go, let me know.
And we have transportation boards and committees, and then do we take public input on those kind of long-range
Yes,
plans?
absolutely. Kittleson will be in touch with all of you and let you know what needs to be done. We're looking at doing most of our outreach online this year because it's hard to do it in public. So the one question I had, they asked me if our long-term plan and our regional coordinated plan had to go to a planning commission or a planning committee. And I don't know whether that is true or not.
I don't think so.
Don't know.
Don't know?
It's,
Okay, that's
it's
your first
possible. So
job.
transportation element is an element of comprehensive plan. And so if we're going to, that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah.
But
State may require it, but not, I don't think we would.
well, it's kind of one of those questions of the answer is it depends. But every comprehensive plan, a county has a comprehensive plan, and we have a transportation element in there. Typically, what I'm familiar with on the transportation elements is we look at what kind of roads we're going to build and how we're going to finance that. It may be that we go to add a transit element in there, but I think that's a legitimate question. I'm not sure the answer, so we'll take a look.
Well, just keep that in mind. They said they were going to start doing the work in June.
Okay.
They haven't even written the contract yet, but I did have my first meeting with them this morning, and that was their one question that I couldn't answer. So, yes, sir.
Have you been able to get Commissioner Herzog coached in on
Absolutely.
that highly technical access to your system?
I was just going to speak to that. So I'm liaison for Kathy in the public transit, and Optus is a state website that we have to work through. And we did an hour Zoom meeting this week. And, you know, for us electeds that know what it's like to get on that state website for campaign finance, Optus is like that times 10. But we worked through it, and I think I've got my part.
You have 2 more in your queue.
Okay, I did 2 last night before I left, so.
You're wonderful.
Anyway.
So we must be done then. And I just delivered the last invoice to the county.
Okay.
So I think
Hopefully
we're
he
done
will-
for this quarter.
Hopefully he will be a better student than I was. No.
Well, doing this once a quarter, I will say, is horrible because you forget everything.
Yeah.
So just write it all down. So, and
Kathy's
I'm always
been a
here
pleasure
to help.
to work with, so.
Absolutely.
She
Great-
gave me a
great
tour
work.
of her facility, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't
Top
seen our new
notch.
facility, please come to Brookings and take a tour. It's quite different than our 400 square foot room in the back of the senior center.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Kathy.
again.
Gentlemen, have a great day.
Okay.
So Brad, let's cover the fair.
Okay. So Caitlin Coleman sent me just a quick recap of what of their budget, since their budget's handled a little differently than all of these other budgets are. And so I'm just going to read what she wrote me. She said, "Our updated budget looks significantly different than the original adopted budget. This is mainly due to the fact that we have had to remove almost all of our income streams. Our TLT incomes have doubled, and we have recently obtained income from one large rental project. Due to the fact that we have had to shut down and also didn't have fair this last year, our expenses have been significantly different than planned as well. Since we have been shut down, we have focused on capital improvement projects that were necessary to keep building functionality and utilize our TLT in a smart way. We moved staff to cut costs through the worst of COVID and are looking at adding back to our staff now as we look to build and move forward." So that is the recap on the fair budget.
Mr. Pash.
And I am their liaison, and I just want to say I've attended most of their meetings, missed a few here and there, but they've had some big hurdles to climb over there.
I bet.
With basically no income coming in. Have dealt with them well. We've just seated a couple of new board members. We're going to hopefully seat another one today, and that'll give them a full board again. So, I think this budget season for them is going to be an anomaly, basically. Everything is so messed up because we basically turned the key off. They can't do anything, so they really don't have a lot of expenditures either. Gold Beach used an amount of their TLT money to put a new roof on one of the buildings there. So that's been accomplished. And they're doing a lot of maintenance and upkeep right now and doing some replacements. I know there were some bathroom issues over there and some walls that were rotted out that they had to replace. So they've done a lot of that. They've also updated the kitchen. But they haven't even been able to do any Thanksgiving, Christmas, none of that stuff. So, again, I think the board needs to look at this budget for this year as an anomaly, at least for this half, for the biennium, and just look at it as an anomaly, and hopefully it improves moving forward.
Right. And will there be a fair, and what will that look like? And
We are planning on a fair, they are planning on a fair for next year, or for this coming year, and they are planning some other events as well that hopefully get a good surprise this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Mr. Huddle.
Thanks. I did hand out some information for you. In the budget documents I have, the event center starts on page 214, or excuse me, starts on page 65, and it's called Event Center 2.14 is the name of the fund. And it goes to, I don't know, roughly page
69 is the last one,
69.
yeah.
And you know, this to me is a recent development. I went back and looked how we handled in the past, and so I gave you this information here, the 2017-18 budget, and that's just a table of contents, and then it has a brief description, but at the top, they had, you know, same fund number, 214, and it's called the County Fair Fund. And in the materials from that budget, they list that the County Fair Fund is a creature of Oregon statutes. And so I gave you these statutes on county fairs as well. And RS 565325 says the county fair fair fund, and it establishes a county fair fund. It says all monies received from activities conducted at the county fair at the county fair grounds shall be deposited in the county fair fund. So I have no idea why last year this got changed to call it an event center. I know the fair is trying to call itself an event center, but you know, it would be like us calling ourselves the county administration building or something. The event center is a place, and the statutes clearly say that all money from activities there go into the fair fund, and then it says that the fair board manages the fair fund, and so I think if there's anything that the finance department should do, it should be to change that. The people at the fair are kind of new, which is good. Caitlin's been there maybe a couple years now, but she's still struggling with contracts. On their contracts, they tried to tell people they were having contracts with the event center at the beach or something, and that's not even a real entity, it's a fiction. So I had to correct her and say, look, you guys are the Curry County Fair Board. That's who the contract's with. It's not with the event center. So I really want to, you know, this is Brad's first budget that he's looking at, so I really want him to know what the law is on budgets. The past budget preparer made this change without my knowledge, so this is the first time I've had a chance to look at it. But this should go back to being called the Fair Fund, and you know, that's really all I got to say with the supporting documents I've given. So.
Yes.
I'm in agreement with that. It's always been the fair and the fairgrounds, and you know, the event center I thought was a particular building, maybe inside that. But so I'd ask Chris a question if he could at the board, you know, at the next fair board meeting, to ask why do they?
We're actually having a board meeting tonight.
Okay.
After all of our meetings today, I'll be there at 6 o'clock tonight. I think it is. It starts. I'll ask.
Why they kind of moved away from fair and fairgrounds? I know that's what, you know, when Ron Crook was there, it's always been the fair. That was, and when you think of Curry County Fair, you think of Ron Crook.
Commissioner Boyce.
I don't want to speak out of turn here because I don't know for sure. Perhaps Commissioner Pash does, but I think that was associated with City of Gold Beach and trying to develop in a marketing sense, you know, the facilities there.
Mm.
But you know, I don't know how that all fits.
And that's exactly how it happened. And they even redid the sign out front and everything else.
Yeah.
Put a new sign up to try and market it. We talked about, you know, I've had relationships with people in Las Vegas and some of the small corporations that go to Las Vegas for retreats, corporate retreats, and bringing them here to having their retreat here and having their meetings in the morning and going fishing in the afternoon, kind of a thing. So I think they were trying to modernize as best they could the name.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I forget the word of it, but anyway, what they're trying to do is just modernize it to make it more eye-catching.
Yeah, they're trying to do branding, but that doesn't
Branding,
mean we change. That doesn't mean we change our budget.
Well, I think it still is Curry County Fair at the event center at Curry County Fair. Or something
Sure,
like that,
but in this document, it's called the Event Center Fund, number 214, which is a change from how we've done it. I don't, they can call their building whatever they want to call it, but it doesn't change their legal, what they are legally. And so what we do legally with the budget and the fair fund, there's no statutory basis to have an event center fund. In the past, event center was just kind of a line item or a division of the fair fund, which is fine, but it should, by statute, by law, be called the fair fund. And by law, they are the county fair when they contract. They're not the event center when they contract. They can tell people they can have an event at the event center, but anyway, it's just trying to, you know, again, we have new people in there, and this last time we did this budget was the first time we did it this way. So just trying to make sure we keep things in their proper categories.
Brad, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so the issue here is really that just the designation here on the budget sheets. It says event center, it should say fair fund. Not so much their branding or their DBA of event center on the beach. Am I hearing this correctly? We don't care if they say event center on the beach, but in a budget and all official documents, it's fair fund.
Yeah, they're the fair board, and by statute, they manage the fair fund. And the law, the statute establishes that it is a fair fund. It's not the event center fund. So yeah, we just need to correct that. And
okay, and that's just a name change there, and they can call themselves whatever they want for branding purposes.
They can, but when they contract, it's got to, you know, and I've been having to correct her a couple times on these contracts. So, you know, and then you heard this is a product of the city of Gold Beach, and that also is, they're not part of our fair. I mean, the fair is in the city limits, but again, and the city of Gold Beach is giving money from their TLT to our fair, but really that doesn't change a lot of how we have to do it by statute. That's all. It's you know, we just need to make sure we maintain, you know, the structure. That's all.
Commissioner Pash.
I'm just wondering, contractually, maybe I'll have their chair or someone get a hold of you, council, but contractually, if I were to say to them, you know, you can make your contracts the event center at the fairgrounds or something like that, to include the word the fairgrounds in their contracts.
Well, what they were doing was saying, you as the guy building our roof have a contract with an entity being the event center. There's no entity called the event center. Okay. So they were, so what I was explaining to them, you know, yeah, they can, people can have but the name of the entity legally is the fair board. So that's all. And but they were thinking their entity was, you know, the location was the event center, and that, you know, they can have a sign saying the event center, no problem. We have a sign out here saying the annex, but we don't run around calling ourselves the annex or Curry County. It's just some people who just aren't up to speed on the nuts and bolts legally of what they're doing. So
okay,
it's just
not that complicated.
I'll bring it up.
It really isn't, but it needs to be nipped in the bud, I guess, is what we're going for here, so that, you know, 5 years from now, we're handing over money to something called the event center, which isn't the fair, or who knows what it is. So again, just trying to keep things in their proper places. And anyway, I gave you the supporting documents for it, and hopefully, Commissioner Pash, you can share that with.
I will this evening.
Yep, thank you.
I'll report back to the Budget Committee later in the year.
Any further discussion regarding the fair?
Just one quick thing. As an old timer around here, I like hearing the fairgrounds. You know, I know where that is, and being a Brookings guy, if I know where the event center is because I drove by it, but I just, you know, it's just nostalgia, I guess, or I don't know. So I like the fairgrounds.
All right. All right, next up is the clerk.
Good morning.
Morning. Shelley Denny, Chief Deputy County Clerk.
Hi, Shelley.
No, I think we were starting with BOFTA, is that correct? Or
Yes.
property tax bills. That budget's on track. as long as the CAFA grant comes in at what we anticipated it. You never know with that from year to year. I think elections was next. We're on track with elections as well. We expect to bring in more revenues than expected. We were able to apply for a grant in the amount of just over $13,000. Also through the CARES Act, we were able to get reimbursed for some of our COVID expenses. And then we received $670 from the state of Oregon for some security upgrades that we did. We did not budget for overtime. However, with that, the COVID expenses money that we received, we're able to offset that expense. We also didn't budget for a cell phone. We purchased one for myself to have. I was giving my personal cell phone number to vendors. So we decided it'd be better to have a county cell phone. And again, our revenues will offset that expense. I think that's it on elections. Is there any questions?
None here.
I'm good.
Okay, recording. Again, we expect to bring in more revenue than anticipated. I think with the interest rates staying low, we're recording a lot more documents. And then also, we took over Vital Records death certificates about a year ago, so we weren't really sure how that budget was going to go, so we kind of kept our revenue low, but we think that we're going to be over budgeted with that. And then again, the overtime and cell phones, same thing as an election. So overall, we believe we'll bring in more revenue than anticipated.
Always sounds good.
Yeah.
I think that was it for the clerk's office.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
How many years you been there? I think I know, but I want to.
25.
I was going to say 23.
Yeah, 25 next week.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah,
great,
thanks.
great work. The entire group there. Thank you, Mrs. Denny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. All right, we're ahead of schedule, and Brad, we're back to you.
I finished.
We're done.
I think
We're
we
done?
did finish.
Yep.
We're done.
Wow.
What did you miss?
Wow, I thought you had some more.
Well, I crammed it all in that 15 minutes.
Oh.
So.
I thought you
Mr.
at least
Herzog
had, I thought you
asked
at
to
least
make
had
what
one
now?
topic.
That was a fair board.
We knocked that out pretty good. Our next meeting? When?
We
Tentatively?
yeah, tentatively next quarter. This quarter? Is it this quarter? I don't know, when do we normally do it? April? Okay.
We're going to get going on the budget early this year too, though.
Yeah. It's not before April, is it?
No.
So sometime
in this-
beginning of April.
In that meeting, what typically happens? Seeing as how this will be the first time for me. What happens in fourth quarter budget meeting? Is that the presentation of
I'd start
next year?
presenting, yeah.
Okay.
Next year.
Okay, I think I've.
Because we've got to have our budget in by, I like to have budgets in early. I don't know if everyone else does, but
Well,
I know, excuse me, a lot of counties, they actually have their budgets in and done by April or May, so that they can adopt them on time and ready to go.
Okay.
And I talked to Brad a little bit yesterday. There was a very different process the first time. When I say the first time, my first year. And then last year was significantly different, and that was effective. So my understanding from Brad is this year will be kind of a hybrid, a little bit of both. Because there are some departments that need a little bit of time, more time, and we'll of course allot that, but at the same time, we'll follow a similar method that we used last year.
Good.
So, Commissioner Boyce.
I would agree with Mr. Pash, except all things considered for this year, not that you're recommending a rush, but I think I'd give the finance department and Director Rickard as much time as we possibly can, especially if we're getting reports that seem to be, giving me more confidence than I had. Not that I didn't have lack confidence, but more confidence than I had, even a week ago or a few days ago. So, I would like earlier budgets, but I think this year might be the exception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I will start them as soon as I'm able to, and if they end up being early, then great. If they end up being on time, then good.
Give us a date, though, at least tentative.
I think I have some tentative dates set for next budget meeting. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head.
You don't have to do it now.
Okay,
Yeah.
but they are set.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
We're going to try to get you 2 more folks to sit beside you.
We already got one, I think.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. I got him yesterday, up north.
Well, let's have a vote first. We need to. That's
No,
a good
I'm
idea.
saying.
Yeah, that's no. I'm happy with who the person you mentioned.
Can you share? Or?
Pardon?
Can you share?
It's our the other
Okay.
Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker, perfect.
All right.
So, and we have a candidate for Central County, so.
Who's that?
Or Lee.
Now's not the time to discuss that.
Yeah,
is it?
next
I
meeting.
don't think.
Sort of.
It's budget business.
Or Lee Snook.
Always good to have a full table. I will say that. All right. Any other discussion?
Not that you're big enough, not big enough to do it.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Thank you.